Historically, we all know that Black people always got longer prison sentences for doing the same exact crime as whites in this country. And we know that is no secret. This is the Marshall Project, December 3rd, 2019. The growing racial disparity in prison time. A new study finds Black people are staying longer in state prisons even as they face fewer arrests and prison admissions overall. The racial disparity between Black and white people sent to state prison is declining, and it has been for some time. But criminal justice researchers say people of all races still aren't treated equally when it comes to one important measure: time served behind bars. While arrest and prison admission rates are dropping for Black people, in 2016, Black people went to state prison at 5 times the rate of white people, down from 8 times. In 2000, they spend longer. They are spending longer in prison than their white peers, and that's always been the case. Like we said, it is a very rigged up system. There's no doubt about it. This trend noted in a report published by the nonpartisan think tank, the Council on Criminal Justice Today, potentially offsets broader efforts to make the system more equitable. The researchers say when it comes to drug and property crimes, Black people are serving increasingly more time, growing at a rate of 1% or more on average every year. So when the time is served for many white offenders, it has dropped. So we know white people never spend the same amount of time in prison as Black people. That has never happened in this country. They couldn't prove that to save their mama's life. For violent crimes, although both groups serve longer from 2000 to 2016, the prison time for Black people grew at a rate almost twice as fast, according to the report. The question is why? Well, you have a very racist criminal justice system, and it's rigged up, where you give the worst of the worst to the Black community. You've been doing that historically for the last 4 centuries. This is nothing new. Experts note that actors at several stages of criminal justice system can influence how long someone ends up spending in prison. For example, prosecutors decide what changes to bring and what sentences to recommend. Judges have the discretion to hand down sentences. Not unless you complain about the criminal justice system. And we've seen judges get handled for making comments about the disparities. Then they want to get rid of you and they want you off the bench. Correction officers can discipline people in prison, which then becomes an important factor when parole boards consider if they will release someone. Criminal history also plays an important role, said William Sable, a professor at Georgia State University who authored the report. During the decades of rising incarceration in the United States, a lot of people, especially Black men, were arrested and pulled into the criminal justice system, leaving them with long criminal histories, Sable said. Those records are often considered at sentencing and may contribute to today's disparity in time spent in prison. Prosecutors rely heavily on someone's prior criminal history when they are deciding what to charge and what sentence to recommend, said Daniel Nagin, a criminology professor at Carnegie Mellon University Heinz College of Information Systems and Public Policy. In Pennsylvania, for example, prosecutors determine what sentences to recommend by considering the severity of the crime and the defendant's past arrest history. A longer criminal history can lead to a longer sentence. Plus, there's a lot of people out here that have rap sheets and they really should be in jail and they're free. And we see that a lot too. You know, they tend to do everything they can to shorten the time that white people have to spend behind bars. But Black people, they always want you to stay in there for an extended period of time. And it's ridiculous. Many states, Nagin said, adopted similar guidelines in the 1980s. The initial intent was to make prosecutors' decision-making process more transparent and less prone to personal bias. Yes, since when? The unintended consequences, however, was that communities that are heavily policed and prosecuted would now often be subject to longer prison sentences. And that's exactly what's happening. They go overboard watching Black people. And now, look, you got the citizens joining in with their cell phones and always getting it wrong. Another potential explanation may come from the adoption of risk assessment tools, school zone enhancements, or gang sentencing enhancements initiatives that ended up disproportionately affecting people of color and how long they stay in prison, said Lee Courtney, a policy associate at the Urban Institute. Okay. This is why I get sick and tired of them talking about reforming the system. You can't reform this system, ladies and gentlemen. This system is so corrupted. You cannot reform this. It can't be done. You would have to do a complete clean sweep and get rid of the people that are there now and start over from scratch. You cannot keep reforming is just like putting a Band-Aid on it. It's not a real remedy. And it's never going to be a remedy as long as you have the people in place that have been enforcing these long prison sentences on Black people. If you think you're going to write some reform and these folks are going to stop, you got another thought coming. Using school zone enhancement as an example, Courtney said if drugs are sold near a school, the penalty can be much higher. The policy may sound logical, but it's much more likely to affect people who live in urban areas with a dense population. The increase in prison terms among Black people may also be associated with the movement away from aggressive prosecution of low-level crimes, said Lucy Lang, executive director at the Institute for Innovation in Prosecution at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. In order to avoid appearing soft on crime, prosecutors who decline to prosecute minor offenses and quality of life cases may double down on violent and serious drug crimes, Lang said, prosecuting them more aggressively, which can lead to longer sentences. But that's not what you do. You take marijuana charges and you give these sentences that don't really match the crime. We need to rethink our responses to serious and violent crimes because lengthy prison sentences not only don't seem to be working, Lang said, but they are part of what is perpetuating the unconscionable racial disparities in the system, despite efforts to eliminate disparities on the front end. And that's because you got the same people with all kinds of racial biases sitting in these positions. And, like I said, reforming it is not going to be any good as long as you got the same people in place. But y'all, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.